Because today we have yet another special topic right here on Labor Matters, and we're looking at setting up a company. That is what we are looking at today. So please do inform all your colleagues that we are live on KBN TV as we get to interact today. So if you have any questions as we get to talk about a topic of discussion for today, all you have to do is use the number to write on your TV screen, and let's get talking about a topic of discussion. So I'm not alone in the studio as usual. I know Labor Matters, I'm always with Mr. Owen Kabanda, because Labor Matters, it is a KBN TV and Mr. Owen Kabanda's program, which comes every Sunday from 14 hours to 15 hours. Mr. Katongo, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm glad to be here.
Good to see you. I know Sunday always talk about issues to do with the employee and the employers.
Yeah, very, very important, because at the end of the day, people's lives are greatly influenced by employment matters.
Amazing.
You wake up every day, you go for work, come back. It's actually very little time that you spend sometimes even with the family.
Amazing.
Yeah.
To our viewers, maybe just joining us for the first time, Mr. Katongo, he is an employment expert, so he's going to tackle a number of issues that has to do with employment. So, Mr. Kabanda, in the past episode, we had been talking about change management for managers and companies for success in the new year and beyond. So, while we are on the topic of changes, and as you know, the government of the Republic of Zambia is encouraging citizens to change and start formalizing their businesses. We thought of maybe taking some questions from entrepreneurs and maybe HR practitioners on how to exactly go about setting up companies, especially on focusing on human resource matters. Now, I'm now wondering, you being a management and leadership advisor, Mr. Kabanda, who has interacted with various companies, I must make a mention, in Zambia, what are some of the key steps involved in setting up a company in Zambia, and what are the initial considerations that entrepreneurs should take in mind before setting up a company?
Yeah, thank you so much, Patricia. Yeah, definitely when, for instance, if we talk about our colleagues, entrepreneurs, when you're just alone, you're doing your small businesses, it is okay to work alone. You don't always have to have so many people. But of course, as business is growing, there will just come a time when you need to now work with other people and such kind of things. So what is being encouraged is really that people formalize their businesses. But in looking at formalizing the businesses, it's also important to understand, first of all, what is this business that I'm doing? What am I trying to achieve through this business? Look at all those factors, including the market itself, where my products or services are going to be sold, who will be the clients. So there's a lot of consideration when it comes to really business and starting businesses. And so it's important to know how to go about those kind of things so that you know the step-by-step processes that need to be taken.
If you can also talk about the legal obligations, Mr. Kabanda, can you maybe outline the legal obligations that a new company in Zambia must fulfill, like maybe registering that business with PACRA? Are there any legal obligations that one has to follow?
Definitely. When a business is being formalized, like we said, you could be operating in a small space, but now you actually want to formalize a business so that you can be able to do business, let's say with big companies or government itself. It's important that you have all the necessary papers. Now, we are not here really to give all the detailed step-by-step processes, but because that is also part of consultants that people need to go and consult. but
I believe that is why Mr. Kabanda is on Labor Matters.
Yeah.
And I believe they're waiting for your response.
Yes, so through the first step really is to think about your business. What kind of business do you want to set up? Then think around the name of the company that you want to have. Then you go to PACRA. You can either go there physically or you can do these things online. It starts with the name clearance because PACRA, that's where you're formally starting to do registration of the business. You can register your business as using the business name. or you can register it as a company limited by shares. So again, if you need advice, that's where their consultants will help you with those kind of things. But also even just people walking over to Pakra, they can still be assisted. So when you are setting up the business, the name will be cleared. Then afterwards, you actually now register the actual business. Then from there, you have to again be compliant with the income taxes in this country. So you have to register with ZRA. They'll give you the TPIN. The TPIN is actually going to be used even when you are trying to open up a bank account for your business. You also have to register with the national, the National Pension Scheme Authority, NAPSA, because if you're going to have employees, they have to, you have to be compliant with that. Then there's also workers' compensation. They will also give you the certificate when you register with them. And also there's NEMA. So all these areas you have to look at and ensure that you are compliant with the regulations, the requirements of the business. You can talk about the council also, where you have to get the business levy, the certificates, and those trading licenses that they give you for you to trade in a particular area. So it's important that you have BACRA, ZRA, NEMA, NAPSA, workers' compensation, and the council. On top of that, there are industry-specific requirements. If you're going to be dealing with food, you have to make sure that you have the licenses for food. You have also ZABs, and so many other requirements that you have to look at. The key issue is that when you are starting that business, it's important that you make sure that whatever you are doing is really compliant with the requirements of the law in the country, so that you can also be able now to even trade, because in certain cases, the procurement requirements will stipulate that for you to trade with maybe a certain institution, you need to have all those certificates. So if you don't have them, you don't have the tax clearance, you don't have maybe PACRA certificate or workers' compensation, maybe you will not be able to trade or conduct business with certain institutions. So that is why it's important to have these requirements in place.
Well explained. I was even about to ask you if we have any implications, because we have quite a number of businesses that are not registered with PACRA and these other institutions. So I wanted to ask you if we have any implications if one doesn't register their business. And thank you very much. You've explained my question. Now, Mr. Kabanda, as an employment expert in Zambia, what is your recommendation on how a new company can go about creating its organizational structure? Because I believe before one even opens a company or maybe starts a business, you need to have a structure. So kindly just explain more about if there are any recommendations that you can give to someone who wants to come up with a business or maybe open up a company.
Yes, so when you look at the creation of a company, so when you are setting up the company, of course there are so many aspects to starting that company. You have to look at the financial aspect. So on the financial side, you are basically saying, what is it that we're going to be selling, or the service we're giving, and how much money are we going to be making out of this business, because it has to make financial sense. Then you are talking of operational management. You are now saying, how do we make sure that we get what we need, we can be able to deliver, what systems are we going to have in place. There is also the marketing side, the sales. How are we going to make sure that our products and services are actually getting to the market? There is the legal compliance that we have just talked about, that you have to also make sure that your business is compliant with all the necessary laws. So when it comes to the other side, which is the human resource aspect, yes, we can talk about starting with, of course, looking at the structure itself. Now, as a business, now even when we talk about business owners who are starting these businesses, there are also just companies that are even already operating that may require to just revise our organization structures. The key issue is when you are starting that business, you need to see what kind of structure am I going to put in place. That means who is reporting to who. What we've seen over the years is a situation where everybody is reporting in a company and everybody is reporting to everyone. Everyone is a boss. Sometimes if it is even a family business, it even becomes more complicated, because the wife here will walk into the business and they will also throw their weight around, or it will be the husband or a niece or a nephew. So it is key to make sure that you have some structure around your business. Remember what we said, if you are operating alone, it is very easy because you know how you are going to operate. But at the moment you start having 1 or 2, 3 people joining you, it's important you create a structure. And in creating that structure, you're now saying, okay, this is the way we are going to set up our company, who is going to report to who. You start looking at even the job titles that you are going to give to the people. We've seen some companies, everybody is director this, chief this, head of this. You can't have a situation like that. If you are 10 people, of course someone has to be leading the other people.
Yeah.
You could have so there are different things that a business has to look at. Even when you bring on board a consultant, I know some companies operate with consultants. The consultant also needs to know what they're doing. It's not just a matter of drawing that organization structure and saying everybody is reporting activity. There are key principles that are followed when creating those things. There are tests that are done to make sure that the organization structure itself is meeting the standards. We talk about, for instance, the ratios, like I was mentioning. What is the ratio of management to non-management? It cannot be so many people in management, like we've mentioned before, and there are very few people actually in non-management. It has to be the other way around. Because the people in management, ordinarily they get more money, you're spending more, but we know that some companies, because they're trying to run away from things like unions, so no, everybody now reports to the CEO, so that then they can't join the union. No, that is not the purpose of organization structures. Structures are meant to help the business to achieve its goals. When we talk about management ratios, we can also even talk about ratios that we look at, for instance, the core business of the company versus non-core or support functions. If we are going to have more people in the core business of this company, then that is okay. Compared to the other way around, where you have more people in the support function, then we ask such businesses what exactly are they trying to achieve. Because at the end of the day, you want to have more people in the place where, in the departments that are actually bringing the money. Of course, even the other departments are extremely important to make the whole complete cycle for you to deliver a service or that product. So there are key ratios that we look at. There are key principles in terms of how you have done the segregation of duties. Are you able to account for the work that the people are doing? Who is reporting to who is authorizing what? So that you can actually find that in the structure that is created, you even build in what we call internal controls in the business. So these things, I know that sometimes people just copy what they see from their colleagues. I think even myself in my business, it can be like this. There are serious works that are done to make sure that the structure that you have can actually help the business to deliver. And that this topic itself, it's a topic that we have to actually spend more time on in terms of the actual intricacies that goes. It's not just a matter of putting those boxes and saying this is the way it will be.
I believe our viewers are enjoying the program. Mr. Kabanda, if we can also talk about job grades in big companies, what are they about, or do we have what steps should be taken to create job grades? Because I believe quite a number of people have been hearing about job grades. Maybe they don't even know what job grades are all about. So if you can tell us what steps should be taken to create these job grades within a new company, and why is it important to have them?
Again, Patricia, I'll try to just talk about
because we just
because these are things that people go for actual workshops.
We just hear job grades, so knowing that Mr. Kabanda is in the studio, so yes, we have to understand what the job grades are all about.
Basically, I will explain. Yes, so job grades are meant basically. It is the manner in which you group the jobs. So you have, for instance, the CEO. Then you can have the chief. So some companies they call them directors. Then you have another grade for heads, maybe seniors, then the officers, then assistant officers, clerks or drivers, all the way maybe to general worker, as an example. So you have these different grades that are created to ensure that the way you operate, when you are in a particular grade, these grades actually, they affect a lot of other things. They will affect, for instance, your job title. They could affect also even the salary you get, even the qualifications that are required, the conditions of service that will apply to you. So if in your grade, your lunch allowance is 300 kwacha as an example, I don't mean the allowance which is for the salary. I mean like if you went out you are doing some work. In other places they call it out of pocket. If in your grade is 300, the other grade maybe is 400, it means that is what will apply. You cannot benefit from what applies in another grade. It also, sometimes these grades would even affect maybe even your leave days. In some cases, everybody will be on 2.0, other people could be on 2.3 or 2.5 or 3 and so on. So these job grades actually affect a lot of what happens to an employee. In terms of how you go about really creating them, that is a detail that I believe people should get in touch with their consultants to help them. There are clear processes that are followed. Basically, it's not again just the waking up and saying I cut here, I cut here. No. You look at the job analysis itself. What is this job about? What are the qualifications? What is the span of control? What are the duties involved? The impact of the decisions of this position. So there are a lot of factors that are used when you are evaluating each job, and then you now create those lines which separate each grade from the other grade. And they are actually very, very important. But of course, they are grades these are things that you'll find mainly in bigger companies. In some private small companies, they are not there. But they are helpful to make sure that there is some form of equality and fairness, especially when it comes to conditions of service. Because when a company is just giving, you come in, it is a good thing. We have talked about this in the past, where somebody just come in, they negotiate, and they get a certain salary and certain conditions. When you have these grades, they will actually limit what you can get based on that grade. So you know that if I'm getting this is actually where even my colleagues who are in this grade, they are getting. So it kind of promotes fairness. But for private companies, they also have their own limitations where they say no, but it also limits the company from getting somebody from the market who they want. But the job grades are actually good to help in ensuring that everybody is equally treated.
Well explained, Mr. Kabanda. Now, I'm now thinking, how can a new company in Zambia get to determine the minimum qualifications and maybe experience required for each job grade?
Yes, so like we've said about the job grades, because each grade, like we talked about the CEO's grade, or managing director's grade, the directors, the heads, and so on, and seniors. Now, what happens is that in these grades, your consultant, what they'll do, or if you have an HR department and they're able to do these things, they will now sit down and ask themselves, okay, what will be the minimum job requirement? What will be the minimum qualification and experience for each of these roles? Which should also have been done really at the time you're doing job analysis and things of that nature. So the qualifications and the minimum qualifications and experience, these are very important that they are reflecting in each of the grades that we've talked about. So let's say you have 7 grades or 8 grades or 9 grades or 12 grades. It needs to be clear. If we talk about our colleagues, the general workers, what should they have? Are you expecting them to have no qualification, or a grade 7 or a grade 9 or grade 12, or it is a certificate? I don't know, depending on your company. So that is set. Then what will the drivers have, or operators, or whatever that grade is? What will be an assistant be having? Is it a certificate or is it a diploma? What is the officer having? Is it a minimum diploma? What is the senior officer having? Is it still a diploma or is it a degree? What is the manager having? So these job grades that we've talked about, they also affect the qualifications that should apply. Now, when the team will be doing those kind of things, looking at the qualifications, it's also important to look at even the company's ability to pay. We've seen situations where a company will put a requirement, for instance, here you need a degree, yet the salary they're offering is, I don't know. So what we are saying is, you should measure your ability to pay versus what kind of qualifications you're also demanding from the candidates. Also, apart from looking at the ability to pay, it's also the nature of your business. The nature of your business and the place where you're going to be doing your business also affects. If your business is going to be set up in the rural areas, for instance, maybe you'll not find a lot of people who have those kind of qualifications. Then you know these qualifications probably you're going to get people from outside. But if you're going to set up and one of your policies, for instance, is to allow people from that local area to get employed, then you have to look at what kind of qualifications you're demanding. We have been to places in this country where even when you had put a minimum qualification of a grade 12, as an example, you really can't find someone with that qualification. They even ask you, Nishiku, what are you saying? Is it a qualification or in Impamvu, it's power that gives us the ability to do the job? And then, so you have to now start changing. So the issue is know where the business is going to be set up, so that you then can also match with what kind of qualifications because also that will then affect, apart from knowing what kind of business you're doing and the location, it will affect how you're going to get those people. So yes, qualifications, minimum qualifications and experience requirements, they're actually important, but it's important that they are taken into context and not just copied and pasted from another person, because you don't know what that business is capable of doing, because sometimes we're just going on the internet and you see, okay, there for operations officer they wanted a degree, and then you also put degree, yet your business is nowhere close to that other business.
Amazing. Yeah. You being a management and a leadership advisor, Mr. Kabanda, if maybe you can also talk to employers what factors they should have in the company to consider that when creating conditions of service for its employees, it gets to cater for each and every person they have in that particular company.
Yes, so when it comes to conditions of service, again, the starting point is the law. And again, this is what we emphasize to employers. We now have the Employment Code Act number 3 of 2019. There is the Industrial and Labor Relations Act. There's so many other laws that apply to employees. It's important to sit down and ask yourself, these conditions that I'm going to set up, are they in line with the laws? Are they in line with the NAPSA laws, NEMA, workers' compensation, and all these things? When you start from that point, you then make sure that the hours of work are within the laws. You also look at the salaries that you'll be paying there within the law. The leave days you're going to give, the maternity leave. We've taken time in the past to talk about these things. Every condition of service that you're going to give the employees should be equal to or more than. Yeah. There are only two things that we look at. Equal to or more than. It can never be equal to or less than, or it can never be less than. Because if you give anything which is less than what the law has provided, then it means you're going against the law. So over and above, what we're saying is that when you're creating the conditions of service, number one, make sure that they are compliant with the labor laws. Number two, they are also, the conditions of service are according to some of the best practices, according to your industry. So there are certain conditions that apply in construction, in mining, in financial sector, in TV and media space. So you have to look at, where does my business operate? What sector is it in? And what are some of the best practices? You have to look at all those things. Number three, you have to look at your ability to pay. When creating conditions of service, again, it is not a matter of just throwing things in your conditions when you cannot be able to provide certain things. Yes, you are compliant with the law, but you put so much. Of course, it is to the advantage of the employee, and it is what we would even encourage. But we are saying you have to look at the ability to pay. Ability to pay is a concept where you're now looking at, what is this company going to be making? If you are going to say, no, I can provide all these kind of nice things to the employees, and 3, 4, 5 months along the way, you cannot even provide those things. Now you're also going to be against the same provisions that you have internally. Forget, if you said you're going to give this person this good condition, And then you can't. Then you say, no, but even in the law, it is even, I was even giving much better. No, sir. It's now something that you agreed. The two parties now agreed the moment that person signed a contract. Unless if you want to change it, there's again a whole long process to change those conditions. So in other words, what we are saying is it's important that businesses focus on creating conditions of service that are within the law, that are also affordable for them, but also they can be motivating for the employees that they are going to hire. Those things are very, very, very important.
Well explained, Mr. Kabanda. You did touch about the issue of money. I believe quite a number of people, I mean, they wake up going to work knowing that pathetic. Zizangina. You are an employment expert, Mr. Kabanda, yes, and you have quite experience when it comes to issues of employees and employers, and you have been undertaking HR work for over 15 years, which is quite a long time. And you know that money is why people wake up in the morning you go to work knowing that you will get something at the end of the day. Something. I'm now thinking, what can a new company establish a fair and competitive salary structure for its employees in Zambia to make sure that as someone is waking up, I mean, you know that I'm getting something at the end of the day.
Yeah. Really, when it comes to salaries, it's important again to understand, first of all, what your business is trying to achieve. Okay? The business that you're setting up, and when we're talking about business, we're not just talking about profit-making companies. We are also talking about if it's an NGO being set up, if it is, I don't know, if it's a department under some institution being set up, you have to first understand what is it that we're trying to achieve. Then, for the people that you're going to hire, you should know, number two, that it's going to come at a cost. So the salaries is one of the biggest costs. So you need to then ask yourself that the salaries that you're going to give, are they in line with the law? So let's start with the basic things. The minimum wages. The law has provided minimum wages. Now we understand minimum wages apply to a certain group of employees who are the protected employees. What that means is that for colleagues who have certificates, diplomas and degrees, maybe for certain higher positions, they may not be covered. The key for the employers is to make sure that the salaries that are going to provide are not below the minimum wage. The other consideration is that the salary that you're going to provide should be competitive. That means you are able to attract employees into your company. And it's not only attracting employees, it's also retaining them, meaning that you're able to keep those employees. When they join your company, they are getting a salary that they are happy with. Of course, we know that a salary will be exciting the first 1 to 3 months. After that, it just becomes
a normal thing.
It's a normal thing. That excitement dies. But at least it should be making the person think twice before they leave, that, okay, at least we're taking good care of here. So that is extremely important. The other consideration is really, again, back to the concept I talked about of ability to pay. On ability to pay, we are now saying, your company needs to come up with salaries that can actually be afforded by the company. It does, again, not help a business to come up with very high salaries that then you are unable to pay within a short period of time. But again, when we talk about ability to pay, we're also not saying you make salaries that are so low. Because like we've said, it will then affect the way you attract employees. And if employees even take up your job in your company, they are actually taking up a job because they have no other choice. What they start to do is, because the salary is so small, they will be working, but they're busy making applications. And they're not applying sometimes themselves fully. So that's why these things have to be evaluated. And again, remember, these salaries that are also setting for your company, we are linking it back to, remember where we came from, the kind of people you want to hire. What kind of skills should they have? What kind of qualifications? Because the salaries you're offering will affect the people that will be joining your institution. So when setting salaries, it's important that you look at all those aspects. Then the salary itself, you have to be clear about the components. Now, this is where, again, we find people just saying, your salary, it's 3,000 or 10,000. What are the components of this salary? By law, there are some specifications. What is basic salary? What is the full salary or full pay? So you have to be clear, because there are certain calculations that we've talked about even in the past. Calculations maybe for leave days, gratuity, and other benefits of stuff. They are based, for instance, on the basic. So you need to be very clear about what are the components of this salary, so that you also then can communicate clearly to the employees, so they understand what that salary is. Even understanding what will happen when they take out the NAPSA, the NIMA, and all these statutory contributions that have to be made. So it's very important that you are very clear as a business about the salaries that you're offering, what will be the components, the parts of this salary, as well as even when you'll be paying this salary. It's very important that those things are very clear, because it helps the employees also to plan for their lives.
Now, talking about contracts, Mr. Kabanda, how should a new company get to approach the creation of contracts of employment in Zambia? Again,
contracts issues, we've seen that people just copy contracts from somewhere. We have said this over and over. Really, when you are setting up a company, either you have your own HR team or the legal team that can sit down and review or develop a contract that is within the provisions of the law. If you cannot do that internally, again, go on the market, get a consultant to come and help you to develop a document that can actually be approved and is in line with the law. The contracts themselves, because they are binding on both parties, the employee and the employer, it means if you put in certain provisions or you made a mistake and there's something that has been given to the employee, you cannot come back and say, no, this good or this benefit, I didn't mean to give it. You can't say that, because you are the one, by law, you are the one who prepared the contract. So it's important that when developing these contracts, you make sure that they are within the law. Again, a contract that also is being given, it doesn't matter because you are a new company being set up, then you say, no, there's what people say about teething problems. We are still again trying to get around the contract. There's no such a thing with the contracts. They have to be within the law. If the contract that is being given to employees is not compliant, is not in line with the law, then that cannot be enforced. So you can have an agreement, and we see this with the employers crying about, no, but we agreed with this employee. If you agreed to wrong things, which are contrary to the law, that agreement is now and void. So you cannot really argue from that point of view. So that's why we tell the employers, make sure that when preparing these contracts, the contracts are within the law, and they are very clear, and they make all sorts of provisions for the staff. If they are unable to create those, get a consultant.
Now, Mr. Kabanda, do you have any strategies which a company should employ to effectively manage employee performance? Because mostly it being maybe a new company, you want to be relaxed and knowing, okay, we are just starting, I can't put more work. So do we have any strategies that are supposed to be put in place?
Yes, so from the time that you're creating a company, it's also very important to know what is it that we're going to be doing in order to ensure that our staff are performing. You are not overusing staff. Also, you are not underutilizing them. Because there are times when employees may be there, they have reported, maybe you employed more than the required number, and they're just basically not doing much work. And you are paying and you're spending, and that is not very good for business. Again, you can have very few employees and you are overstretching them, we are overusing them. So performance management is really critical. And again, if you don't have capacity within the institution to set up proper performance management systems, in the country there are so many consultants that you can then approach. You get in touch with the consultant to say, this is what we're trying to achieve, so that then you are helped step by step in terms of how the performance management system has to be created to make sure that employees are performing. But also to that performance management system, there has to be the reward system also attached to it, so that employees know that if I perform very well, this will be my reward, rather than just working.
Is it important to also get to train the employees as you get to set up a company?
Definitely, employees have to be trained. You have to do, from day one, once the contracts have been signed, there's an agreement, people start reporting. You need to make sure that in this company, again, you do a lot of induction, because people have to know. Remember that you're getting employees from all over the place. They are coming with their own behaviors, their own manners, and all those kind of things. So you find that if you don't from day one make things very clear to the employees, then they are able now to start bringing even some bad mannerisms that will then affect your business. So from day one, yes, it's important that you do inductions, make sure that employees understand what is required of them. If there are papers that they have to sign, they sign for that, because in future it becomes very important. And also managers and supervisors are also expected to continue with the training so that everybody is being brought to the right place to make sure that they are focused on performance and nothing else.
Now, in a situation where a new business may not have the capacity, Mr. Kabanda, to do these things which you've just mentioned, are there any access to services or consultant where they can get to maybe get in touch to? Because I did hear you mention if you have any queries, please get in touch with your consultants and so on. So maybe if you can also brief us about it.
Yes, so for creation of companies being set up, setting up companies and things of that nature, definitely. There are companies that have their own HR people who are quite experienced. But again, sometimes there are companies that don't have the capacity to set up these things. So that's why now you really go out on the market through your procurement processes, get a consultant to come on board. And again, we have to emphasize the consultant needs to know what they're doing. We have also seen some people, they will create things that are not really meeting the standards. So it's important that bring on board a consultant that know what they're doing, so that they help you not only setting up things, the systems, the structures, also setting up issues of creating policies that are required by law, like we've said in the past. Also training the managers as well as training the employees, so that everybody is on the same page.
You talked about the issue of behavior of certain employees, Mr. Kabanda, and you have been setting up new companies, and you know that people in new companies come with various behaviors, which you did mention from different companies, and disciplinary issues arise many times. What steps should be taken to address them effectively? Because you mentioned partially on how people tend to come with different behaviors from different. Yeah, you just want to get hold of them. You don't want to let go. In as much as you're in a new environment, you just want to keep on being you, the old you, from where you're coming from, whatever you were doing in that particular company. So how can we address such kind of employees?
So it really starts with training, like we've said. Disciplinary matters, before even something escalates to be treated as a discipline issue, first of all, we always emphasize the company should within itself undertake training for staff to know the do's and don'ts. What are the behavioral standards, the performance standards of the company. Again, where the company is unable to do these things, we have said it over and over. Bring on board a consultant, they can do those things for you. Now, once the training is done and people have been told what is expected of them, and they continue, for some reason, to behave contrary to those requirements, of course, there will be correction taken. If the correction is not working, then the company can proceed to now undertake discipline. And again, this is why it's important that a company has a disciplinary code in place. If you are unable again to create those kind of things within the company, or you have one which is outdated, update it. The committees should also be trained, the disciplinary committees, so that they know what is happening or what should be done, so that when you are administering discipline in this company, you are again within the provisions of the law. Remember, the law is clear about providing an employee with an opportunity to be heard. So it is no longer the case like in the past where you just wake up and say, this is a new company, I don't like you, you're fired. Or you actually, this concept of probation and successful probation. How did you arrive at unsuccessful probation? Clear. These are things we talk about. Don't make unnecessary mistakes. Train the people, they know what is required. If they continue committing offenses, take them through the disciplinary process, then summarily dismiss them if they cannot be changed.
This has been an amazing conversation, and I'm looking forward to having yet another of such next week. But before we wrap up this conversation, if we can read some of the text messages which we've received. So our first text message reads, "Hello, my name is Peter. Just want to find out what can one do if he or she doesn't know the actual salary on a monthly basis. And when you ask the HR, he just tells you that that's your salary.
That's your salary.
Every month and another salary. It's not specific. Thank you. Looking back at your feedback.
Very simple. That issue has been a concern with a lot of other people that have been texting us. Really, and this is an appeal to our colleagues in HR. Please, we've said this over and over. Have a salary structure. If you are unable to create a salary structure, please get a consultant. They will create a salary structure for you so that even the salaries are giving to the staff, they know.
Keeps on changing, you don't even know.
No, people should know. Let them know, okay, this is the salary that I'm expecting this month. If I do X number of days or this kind of work. We know that salaries get to change in circumstances where maybe it is based on maybe performance or number of days. Make things clear to the staff. You should be able to even, if the salary is based on the number of days, for instance, that the person, be able to actually calculate as HR, or if you don't know, get the finance to say your daily rate is, for instance, 100 kwacha as an example. So you worked only for 20 days. So this is now, how come you have now this 2,000. Now this other month, you only worked for 15 days. That's why you have the 1.5. So things should be very clear. If it is based on performance, you should have a target that the person has to achieve to get X amount of money. So these things should really not be happening in the companies.
This one reads, how do company arrives at the rate to pay commission in agents? Furthermore, there is anything prescribed in the labor laws to guide insurance companies on how to pay commission to its agents? In most cases, most sales agents are just paid commission. Is this acceptable before the labor laws from a concerned citizen?
Yes, so again, when it comes to agents, it's a whole big topic that we probably will cover at one point. There are things that we have to understand, and also what is happening in some companies where, remember, there is a separation between a contract of service and a contract for service. Is there a contract of employment with this person, or it is a contract for service, meaning they are not necessary employees. So in other cases, again, they are treated as employees. So there's been this kind of mix-up in some companies. So what is really key, again, they can send us the full details of where they are, and then we'll submit that to Labour Office, who can then look into the specifics, because we don't have access to the kind of contracts that they signed. So it is we cannot really go into the details of commenting on what applies and what does not apply. Otherwise, there are minimum wages that apply to employees, and those we have actually talked about it. It's just a matter of checking, is whatever you're getting paid in line with the minimum wages, and if you signed a contract of employment.
All right, this one reads, keep up the good work, Mr. Kabanda. We keep learning a lot from Salati.
Thank you so much, Mr. Salati. We appreciate it.
Amazing. Let's just read this last text message from Kitwe, named J. Zimba. Labor law is not followed by many companies in Zambia, especially Copper Belt. What procedure they do follow to set up the company? Do Ministry of Labor have the list of each company operating in Zambia, and to know how they operate? Too much casualization to permanent jobs and no contracts.
Yeah, so just to be clear again, like we've said, we are not here to represent the Minister of Labor. We are here as people who talk about labor matters. However, if your company is one where you find that there's some labor law provisions are not being followed, again, you are free to visit the Minister of Labor, the nearest office in your Copper Belt. There is Minister of Labor there. You can also just go on Google and check out their contact details and bring all their concerns to the Minister of Labor officials, so that then you can be assisted. Because like we've said, also what has been said in that text, sometimes it's the way the jobs are created in a manner that it leads to casualization, which should not be the case.
Amazing. Well explained, Mr. Kabanda. And we have quite a number of text messages, but I believe we'll read them next week. We have to go. We are running out of time. If you can just give us your last remarks about our topic of discussion as we get to wrap up this conversation.
Yeah, really, it's to just again thank all the colleagues who have been following us, and those who have managed to follow us on LinkedIn, on YouTube and TikTok. Please continue with the same. For our employers and employees, again, make sure that both parties are working towards having a workplace that is enjoyable and there's productivity. So when it comes to these things that we've talked about, creating structures and systems in the company, it's important that those things are available so that then you can manage the employees better.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Mr. Kabanda.
Thank you so much.
To our viewers, thank you very much for watching Labor Matters right here on KBN TV, the finest television. We are on GSTV 279, Topstar 1 as well to Go TV 27, and on our Facebook, it is KBN TV. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook so that you don't miss such conversations. Don't forget to follow Mr. Owen Katongo Kabanda on all social media platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You will find all